Hi everyone. This is an episode of Project Muse. This is me and my buddy Spud. And
Hello.
yeah, I don't know if you can see his thing, but he's a nice silhouette. He's the audio guy. I'm the more visual guy. So the idea that we had was come up with a prompt and use our skills. I do art. I'm an amateur, and Sean does music. He's also an amateur, but if we make like $1 from this, then we're professionals. So, without further ado,
Goddamn right.
without further ado, I guess I'll go first. The whole prompt, actually, I should say, was identity. All right, so here's my speed draw. I'm gonna go ahead and count it down, and then I guess I'll just start talking about it. So, I had to fast forward this a lot because this took like 12 hours to actually do. I hope I get faster at this. But yeah, that's why you're gonna see it kind of like flying through some stuff. But I decided to take a picture of myself, and at first I kind of wanted to like draw over top of it. So you see me kind of do that. Um, and then halfway through that part, I kind of decide to not exactly do that. So I do something somewhere in between because I figured like I really wanted to like go hard on Photoshop and do shit that I should have gotten better at over time. So I went back to the basics. Um and like yeah, this is me. Now I'm doing the hair, so that was me actually like just checking out all the hair brushes. Um but yeah, I'm coloring myself in, and that actually was kind of fun. I like this. Oh, you'll like this part actually, Sean. It looks like I'm a skin face for a second. I like yeah, see. I decided to not have that. Um and yeah, I kind of like had this idea where I'm like, all right, I have this idea in my head of how I want this to look. But I just got to figure out how to make Photoshop do it for me, which is like hard because I'm not that great at it yet. Um it said head in the clouds, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Thought it was a funny joke. But yeah, so I watched a lot of tutorials actually on like making clouds and how to like make brushes for clouds and all that stuff because I wanted to have that. And this right here is like a picture of ink dropped in some water because that was the closest thing that like got that was the closest thing for me to what I had in my head. So I'm like, all right, I like this. I'm gonna try to do what I can with this.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I
I
kind
like
of,
that.
yeah, I like the idea of the identity thing because it got me for like the prompt. It got me to do a self-portrait, but like for once it wasn't within the restraints of college or school or something because that's you always do a self-portrait in one of those. But I got to just do one that I wanted to do. So, yeah, I kind of just went all out and did weird stuff, and I don't know. Making neon's fun. This is my first time actually making neon in Photoshop. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure.
No. This is
But
really cool, dude.
hey, thank you. Yeah, I again, it was like a 12-hour thing, which honestly, I think my workflow is pretty bad, so that has a lot to do with it. But I learned a lot from this, so I know it'll get better. This is me futzing around trying to get rid of that line that appeared. Came back the next day. My wife had a good idea, and I just did it. See, there's no more line. It was like I got to a point in the night where I was just looking at the screen for too long and nothing made sense. But yeah, so I came back in it. I wanted to build like some volume with the clouds, sort of like fill the 3D space in so it wasn't too flat. Um,
Uh-huh.
and then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna throw more of me in this. So I played GameCube a lot when I was a kid, especially Super Smash Brothers, and still did like in my adult years. So uh, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take some Nintendo GameCube controller buttons and I'm gonna try to sprinkle them in the clouds. I also go and do this with PlayStation and Xbox. PlayStation didn't work out so well. You'll see what I did with that, but yeah. Also, there's this tool I didn't know existed. It's called like the patch tool. It's not the stamp tool or clone tool. It's a patch tool. It like learns what's supposed to be there. It's weird.
Uh-huh.
It's very,
Yeah.
yeah, it helped me fix a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say your healing was really good there.
Yeah. So that helped me a lot. I decided to color like change the texture for that background a bit, and then I immediately stopped doing that and went back and just went back to the original. Cause I kind of like this whole like surreal feeling it has. Like you know it's a picture of a thing, and you know it's a picture of me, but then there's also things drawn in and things not drawn in. So it had like a pop art type feel to it.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to lean in kind of hard on that one and just
Yeah. I
yeah.
like the style of it. Like when it was just the head and the ink, it kind of looked like an airbrush t-shirt for a minute, and that was really fucking sweet.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah. The finished product I ended up doing like a lot and then I ended up trimming back a lot. So this is going to be a nightmare for people. I'm literally moving one button at a time around a screen, so I apologize to everybody. But it's what I had to do. And then I realized it was a stupid idea and didn't do that at all, but hey, that's art. So like yeah,
I like how the C sticks on the GameCube controllers look like flying saucers.
they do. I was thinking nipples, but they kind of look like those too.
You know what? I see your perspective now that you say
Yeah,
it.
yeah. The A
I like
button.
yours better.
I'll give you A button. The big A button looks like a saucer. But
Just that like that side profile with like the yeah. That's neat, dude.
thanks. Yeah, I wanted to I was thinking like a galaxy at first, like you know how like in those like big giant gassy things there's like stars and stuff in there.
Yeah.
I was thinking
Yeah.
like that. So I just started doing that, but I don't know. It kind of became its own thing, and I just went with it. Um, and I figured drawing them in and like colorizing them just looked kind of cooler and like cartoony. So I liked that. And then I learned a lot about color fixing and lighting. Like this is me figuring out lighting, which oh my God, Photoshop lighting is very weird. If you ever if you ever get a chance, mess with it for a little bit, and yeah, it's very strange. But it gave me a lot of power to like make it look like it fit in the scene. And then this is me fixing shadows and kind of giving it a little bit more depth. That little flashing was me. I took a screenshot and then compared and just like went
Oh,
back
the
and forth.
Smash logo was I was waiting for it.
Well,
And the Halo.
yeah, yeah. So, oh, and here's gonna be a big pause because I like walked away and forgot to edit it out. But yeah, here it is. Uh, yeah, we got Smash, Halo, Soul Calibur. That's what this is.
Uh-huh.
And then you'll know what the next one is. I I end up I'm gonna let you know now. I ended up not going with any of these in the image. But I do think in the future I want to revisit this for sure and like find a good way to incorporate them because I know how I want them to be in there, but I just couldn't make it work for
I knew it was
myself.
gonna be Minecraft.
Yeah, there you go.
I was like, what could it possibly be? Like Overwatch is too new in his life.
Yeah, I love Overwatch, but yeah, you're right. This is what I grew up on. These games right
Yeah.
here.
Oh, I
Um,
like the blending behind the hair and shit too. That's cool.
Thanks. And then I wanted to put something in the sunglasses. Um, so I wanted to put a text. It's like my favorite quote. It says, "If you question your happiness, you cease to be so." Um, it's my favorite quote ever. It's from like a movie called like 13 Conversations About One Thing. Not many people know about it, but it's a good quote. And I decided not put it on the glasses and just instead put it on my forehead with an eye.
The pineal gland.
Yeah, so that's that, and I guess I'll put up the render. So here's the final render. If you can see that.
That's cool.
Thanks. It's me.
That's really cool, dude. That's
Thank you.
way more impressive than what I did.
Oh no, I don't know. I don't know how to do what you did, so we'll see. But
All right.
yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
No, you should be. That's fucking sweet, dude.
Thanks. Yeah, so hopefully I can deliver on the next one.
You got to make that your desktop background. That's like the perfect desktop background.
Yeah. Well, I was worried because thank you, first of all, but I was worried with like the this on the forehead, because when I did that I was like, wait a minute. And I looked at like Joe Rogan's podcast cover. It's not the same. It's not the same. It was close, but it's not the same.
Well, that imagery is a bajillion years old.
True.
So it's not anyone's.
Yeah. All right. Did you want to go? I can stop sharing right now.
Yes, I want to go.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
There you go.
Cancel.
My inspiration for this track starts with the interlude chords to Master of Puppets by Metallica. That chord progression was the first time that I graduated from playing power chords on the guitar to an actual melodic, arpeggiated melody. I distinctly remember my guitar teacher trying to explain the musical concepts behind this particular piece. The way he packaged the information to me made a lot of sense. The notes being played here are from a hierarchy. He called that hierarchy a scale. In this case, that scale was the E minor Phrygian dominant scale. That's a lot of words to say that this is not random, that there's a pattern to it, a structure, a hierarchy, a relationship between the notes. And now that we understand the hierarchy and the notes available to us in our scale, we can then create chords and melodies that we know will sound great together. We can create a chord by first picking a root note, that is the bass note of our chord. The chord progression for this song is E minor, D major, C suspended 2, and a nice jazzy D sharp / B. Now those are some very fancy names, but the chords themselves aren't hard, and thankfully the technology I'm using allows me to stamp in those chords if I was unsure of their structure, giving me the chance to kind of reverse engineer the theory behind it. Now that we have our chord progression, I start mapping out our melodies. First, I start by looking at scales that fit within the scale of E Phrygian dominant. E minor pentatonic fits. And the pentatonic scale is a guitar player's best friend, and since this song is based off of a metal band, I use it a little bit here. At this stage, I'm pretty much only using my ear. I'm going back, I'm adjusting the melodies, I'm making sure they loop in with one another, and I'm also checking my chord progression to ensure that my melody still fits over top of it without causing too much dissonance. Now that I have a few tracks that loop well together, I'm focused on the production. I'm changing and shaping the sound of my voices, I'm giving a pattern to my bass lines to give it a little more energy, and I added a drum machine because I'm terrible at drum. And now that I'm confident in my piece musically, it's time for the production stage. This part of the process is by far the most challenging for me. It's simply paralysis by analysis. I'm still learning FL Studio, and there are a lot of plugins and effects that can really change and shape your sounds and voices. Over time, I'll learn, but here's what I came up with.
Damn.
And that's my song.
I feel like I just got served. Like I showed my piece and then you're just like, that was incredible, man.
You know what's funny is I feel like you could play my music over your time lapse.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping at the end of this video we could just have both of them up, you know, just my image and then your music playing as like our outro thing. That was so cool. That was so cool. I love that so much.
Thank you.
Holy
Dude, I don't know
shit.
what it is, but every time I haven't touched that file since I put this video up a few days ago. And I went back and I listened to it. This video has like 3 views. It's all me because it's private. And every time I listen to it, it sounds different to me. And the last time I just absolutely fucking hated it. And when I listened to it here, I actually loved it. And I hadn't listened to it in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, it actually is a little bit better than I gave it credit for.
No, that was very good. And like your explanation on like how you got to that point. I think it's interesting that both of us took this as like kind of like a school thing. Since this is like our first one and it was identity, you and I kind of like went way back to like when you and I started to even think about this type of stuff. And so yours was like a little book report, which was really well said, and mine was like a self-portrait, which, you know, I like it a lot. But wow, that was cool. Like how you had the metal inspiration in there, but then put your fucking cool ass twist on it. Damn, that was nice. Damn.
Thank you.
I wasn't ready for that. I'm glad you didn't play like Mary Had a Little Lamb just to fuck with me.
Thought about it.
That's what I'm gonna do when we if we get to the one episode idea we had where you draw and I make music. I'm just gonna play a nursery rhyme.
Yeah, that would be that'd be something. You know, so talk about your process. Talk about or do you want to take a break before we do that?
No, I mean we're here. I'm fresh. I can talk about it. I'm
all right.
So
perfect.
like
I got cough.
Cool. My process was my journey that I went through as an artist. No, I just, like I said, you said identity. So obviously for somebody who the prompt is for who is drawing, identity is very much like, okay, well, me, I'm going to draw me, I guess. I thought of drawing like things that I like, and then I kept going back to self-portrait, and I'm like, but I did that in school. And then I was like, well, you know, this gives me a chance to do what I want to do instead of just what the school prompt sort of thing is. So I'm like, no, I'm gonna do the self-portrait, and I'm gonna draw stuff I like. I'm gonna combine them together, see what we get. So usually when that happens, like, okay, I got an idea. I kind of like see in my mind's eye the thing that I kind of want, or parts of the thing that I kind of want, and I try to just do my best to recreate that with whatever tool I have. So Photoshop, in my mind I saw like my head floating in like a cloudy smoky, like rolling smoke thing. I don't know why, but that's what I saw. And so like with Photoshop, I was able just to get a picture of my head, put it in there, and put literal smoke around it. So like perfect. But that's too easy. So I'm like, I need to keep going at this and try to make this interesting. My favorite color is green, so like let's try to make that interesting. How can we do that? And from there, once I found out like what I wanted in there and kind of how I wanted it to be, I started focusing on the basics, which is like composition, does your piece need depth? If so, how much depth? How are you showing depth? Like, are you having a foreground, midground, background, that type thing? Um, Start into having like diminishing details, like the front to back and all that stuff. I started going in with that, but then since it's a surrealist piece, which is what I started to feel like that's what I wanted to make, which surrealism is supposed to be, here's real life, and then you look at it and you go, wait, something's wrong. Like something's off. This clearly isn't how real life looks. That's what I started to go for. So a lot of the rules started to fall out the window, and then at a certain point I just started to get into a zone where I just, whatever looked cool, I put it down, and that was it. And yeah, eventually I had this. So
Now,
that's it.
how do you find the motivation to like sit down and do this?
That's a hard question. Well, like I mean, you and I talked about it a little bit. For me, I mean, everyone kind of who does any type of art has their own personal way they get motivated to do something, whether that be just their job, um, or somebody telling them to do something, or simply they love doing it, so they just keep doing it and they're obsessed with it. For me personally, um, I like. I think what it is because I'm still figuring it out. Honestly, I like to create something um, that like can be used in some way, or like I like to fix things, right? Like, you know me, I work with wood and stuff. I like to build things, and they usually have a
Yeah, you
purpose.
do.
They usually have a purpose. So if something doesn't have a purpose, I don't generally do it, which is which sucks. But like, so for art, for me, um, you and I got talking, and I'm like, we need to do something together because we both kind of like, vibe off each other real good. But I'm like, we do something, I know I'll finish a piece. Like I know I will because I have something to make for a thing. So for me, I need a like, I guess an excuse. I don't know really how to word it. That's the best I can word it.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah, you need you
good
need something to
motivation.
motivate you to
Yeah,
do it.
yeah, yeah. If it's just me sitting down, I won't do it. I'm good at it. I know I'm good at it, but I need the push for me.
Yeah, I feel that. For
Yeah.
me, I'm kind of the same way. I feel like I have like bipolar tendencies in a lot of ways, or like when I'm like very excited about something, I am full 100% attention is on it at all times, constantly thinking about it to like an unhealthy level. I like compulsively buy like books, like listen to audiobooks all day at work, like on subjects that I like, and then like a week later just be like, well, that was fun, and then never pick it up again.
Yeah. So how do
And
you stay motivated, or are you
uh,
still
I
looking?
I need to have some sense of fulfillment from it.
Mm,
I feel like I set out with a plan, and then like when it doesn't fold out, or like when the path kind of like when it doesn't happen as romantically as I painted it in my mind, I'm just kind of like, well, at least I'm a smarter person because of it, and then I abandon it like as like a defense mechanism. Uh, but I like doing this with like a challenge and like this whole sense of identity really like was kind of fun because it allowed me to kind of take the 10 plus years of doing this shit like kind of on and off, like 2 weeks every 8 weeks.
yeah.
It was kind of like forced me to kind of like focus all of that really target in on it, and having that objective, because I can just sit down and be like, well, today this is my chord progression, or I'm just gonna like improvise in this scale, all this shit, and then I save the track, listen, like, and then that's the end of it. It becomes like a 2 bar track with like just a melody or like just
Right.
chords, and then that's it. I never look at the file again. I have like 12 of those already, and I like 4 of those before I even decided what I was going to do for the project about identity. Before I just decided, fuck it, the next thing I start is going to be the thing I finish. So that's where I am with it. I find it very hard to do it unless I have like a clear like an objective. Like
Yeah.
kind of like
So
you.
you, yeah,
Like
you and yeah, you were we're very similar in that regard. I think I mean, that's why this is happening, honestly. Like, I'm glad it did because I got to make something that, um, my wife said this is her favorite piece I've ever done, which
it
was
is really cool.
which was shocking because I think I've done a lot of really good pieces. But you know what it is? Like you were saying it, before we like really were recording. You hated your thing. I hate this, but I do. I absolutely love it. Like looking at it now, I'm like, yeah, I did good at that. I did good at that. But when you're doing it and it's hour 10 of looking at this thing, just trying to make a button look the way you want a button to look in a like void area inside of a cloud with a neon light behind it, but having ambient light bouncing off of like smoke clouds in front, and you're just like, like after a while, it's just you kind of, so stepping away is nice, from your piece and then coming back to it, but yeah, it's just interesting because like I see it a certain way, but everyone else sees it a completely different way. Like your song is so good. I can't understand you not liking that song, but I understand it from my perspective with my art.
Yeah, so it's like a weird thing where I've listened to it probably no exaggeration 700 times,
Like,
like individually, like each individual component, like all added together, like each one of those each one of those loops, each and then like each iteration of the song until I got to that point was, so I was, it was like a long road of going nope, 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 before I was just finally settled on something that sounded decent to my ear. And by that point you're so deaf to like whatever's going on, like it's so it's so complicated. I guess you might have the same problem where like you're so focused on one specific thing that everything else kind of becomes gray.
mm-hmm.
And then like you try to focus on the whole picture, but you're so locked into being on one specific thing that you just keep nitpicking at stupid shit that in the
Yes.
grand scheme of things fits, but under like you're looking at the forest, like the tree, not the forest. Like the tree is imperfect, but the forest is beautiful. Like that's where I found myself a lot of the
Okay.
times. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the mindset you get into when you're looking at it from like still a creative perspective, when you're still looking at it as a piece instead of being something finished, because when it's a piece you're still working on it, so you kind of have to make that decision that you're done. It's no longer a working piece, it's a render, or in my case, or it's a track, and it exists as it exists and you're no longer going to touch it. That's your publication, that's it exists now, it's gone.
Yeah.
And then you're able to appreciate the forest from the trees a little bit more in that regard, I think, after you kind of put some distance, like literally distance,
Mm-hmm.
between yourself and like the finished project.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely resonate with that. I mean, like the only reason this is done is because you and I set a deadline. I could still
Yeah.
be working on this thing.
Yeah.
Like right now I can't stop looking at it and going like, I could have fixed that, I could change this, I could edit that, I could get rid of that. Like
Yeah.
I'm still nitpicking in my mind, but the fact that it is done, I hit the freaking export button, and I don't want to go back through that nightmare. Like I'm just calling it. And you know what? I really do think like in the future we should definitely have episodes where we like revisit pieces we really want to revisit. Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like
I have a couple of tracks from my Stoned in the Gallow days I want to recreate now that I have actual powerful studio production software.
mhm.
Because back in those stoned days, the Gallows days,
Yeah.
I was like bare bones. It was a web application. I couldn't even automate more than one track at a time. Like if I wanted to have the volume shift midway through the song, I could only do that on one instrument at a time. Or I'd have to combine the instruments that I wanted to fade into one file, and then I'd lose all control over editing after that point, because then it'd just be a flat sound file at that point. So
Shit,
it
shit's rough in
was
the
it,
gallows.
it was like yeah, exactly. It was a rough pointed rough. That's why the name was Stone in the Gallows.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it was kind of like working with Microsoft Paint. Like I could do it, but you could tell it was Paint.
Right. Yeah, but even then you made some pretty decent stuff. Like obviously you have a great ear understanding and ability to um create music or just like pieces in general.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's and yeah, it's always interesting because I've watched like slowed down. I watched you in real life go through what you just did with like your speed run with like messing with all the chords and like moving, like if I'm just looking at the screen, it's just moving little gray bars around a screen and putting them in different places. And you're able to like make that make sense. And just watching it, I'm just like, what? How is he? Huh? Because
Yeah.
those programs have a lot. Like Photoshop has a lot, and you probably see me flipping through a ton of different menus just trying to color correct and all that stuff. So it is interesting when it's like, because I'm good at drawing with pencil. Colored pencil's my thing. Photoshop's a different thing entirely. I'm good at it because I'm good at art, much as you're good with music, so you're good at this thing. But it's very weird. I like it, but it's very weird.
Yeah. Yeah. What's cool for me is I've played guitar since freshman year of high school, so 17 years. And I'm not particularly good from like a technical standpoint. Like I can play songs and I can do things that like normies would think is impressive, but like I can't play with a band. I can't like now bass guitar is a different story because it's like more melodic and there's
Mm,
like it's less of a I don't want to say it's less of a technical instrument, but it's just like a different skill set that fits my big clumsy hands better than a guitar.
okay.
So when I'm like doing things on the piano roll, which is that big gray box where I'm moving the notes around, me playing guitar for so long, I kind of think of things in grids and patterns and shapes anyway because of the way the fretboard is structured.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually I taught myself how to play piano through the piano roll by applying my guitar knowledge of just realizing, hey, the piano just starts at this note like a guitar. Every white key is just like those notes, and every black key are just these notes, and it goes in descending order. So if I know what key the piano, like what note any given note on the piano is, I know what all the other notes around it are because of the relationship of them is exactly the same as the guitar. It's
Uh-huh.
just laid out slightly different. Like once I was able to make that realization and kind of like see it structured in a way that had like all of the keys labeled on the piano roll, I was just like, why don't they teach you it this way? Like, this makes no fucking sense. Like, why
Yeah.
does it have to be like I have to learn all of like it basically out of order? And then I taught myself how to read music the last couple of weeks the same way too.
Yeah.
Musical staff. No one, everyone teaches you it like every good boy deserves fudge and FACE,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. I've heard of
But
that.
if you look at it, if you start at
I played a
every,
recorder.
yeah, but think about it like this. If you start at every, and then instead of skipping to G for good, what's in between them? F. So it's E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So it's in ascending order. The musical alphabet goes from A to G and then it goes back to A again. So instead of
Huh.
teaching you, hey, it starts that first line is E, the next line is F, and it follows the alphabet in ascending and logical and a pattern, we're going to make you learn things out of pattern and not explain it to you in a way that it's like it just makes no sense why you would never just say that it's an ascending pattern. And once I made that realization that
Huh.
hey, it just ascends like
It
chromatically, well, not
ascends.
like it's the alphabet. Like
Yeah.
if you know the alphabet, you can read music. You just have to know what the first like where the alphabet starts.
I always wanted to learn some kind of instrument or something, and I had a guitar, I had all kinds, I had a piano, like, but my family could never afford like someone to teach me, and then so I would hang around people who played music and ask if they could help teach me. And like generally what happened was just they'd be like, all right, so then you do, so you hit this and then this and then they would just go off and play a song. And I'm like, what? And like, oh, so here's this chord. I'm like, okay. And here's this chord. I'm like, okay. They're like, do those chords. I'm like, got it. And I'm like, what's next? And then they're like, and then you learn how to play. And I'm just, which it's hard because not everyone's a good, just because you're good at doing or learning something doesn't mean you're good at teaching something. They're two different things entirely.
Yeah.
So I can't blame those people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why Bill Belichick tells Tom Brady what to do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a great point.
Yeah. I kind of had the same thing. Like I had I had like friends in high school. I was one of the founding members of Guitar Club in high school.
Oh, that's where I tried to learn.
Yeah, and then I had the exact same experience then. So yeah, and then I had a couple really good guitar. I had two guitar teachers in my life. One in high school. His name was Phil. He was like the coolest dude. He was like you, but like really, really, really fat, and like a deadhead, like super chill, like just
Me but
mellow
fat.
dude. And yeah, but just like a yeah. I don't want to disparage the man, but he was a good guy.
Hey,
He was
Phil
cool.
sounds like a cool guy.
Yeah, he always had like the coolest advice that was just always like, don't be so hard on yourself. But the way he packaged it would just be like really like sage and wisdom. So I liked Phil. He was a cool guy. Like I just wasn't understanding the theory at that time, so he did his best with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple like literally a year before the pandemic, I started taking like actual like theory lessons at a local guitar
You're gonna
shop
cut his
with a
name.
guy named, yeah, let's not dox him. With a guy named Tom.
Tommy
And
S.
the guy was so smart, like from a technical standpoint, and like knew theory, but like his thing was like harmony. Like he was a classical musician, and I was like, I want to learn how to apply theory to bass. And he's like, I'm a harmony guy, so you're gonna have to bring your guitar. And I'm like, oh great. So like that was, I still learned a lot, but it just wasn't what I wanted. But I yeah, and then just YouTube has been like the greatest fucking resource for me ever. Google, and then recently Chat GPT has answered every fucking question I've ever had. So I feel like I'm indestructible at this point. I just need time.
I've been throwing the Chat GPT in like questions I had, and it's been helpful. Although I tried to like figure out the render time that I was going to be doing with these videos, and it just was not doing the math right at all. And I literally like would say, yeah, but that's wrong, and it'd go, oh, my apologies. And then would would spit out something else. I'm like, yeah, but that's also wrong. It's just I'm like, all right, I'll just keep coming back to the computer.
I bet you at that point it was like, well, if you know it's wrong, then why are you asking me?
I know.
I'm doing the best I can.
It was Premiere. It was Premiere's like whenever if you try to like speed up a video to like make the duration shorter. Or at least for me, I was having an issue where I would like take all of the clips that I had and try to make them to fit whatever time limit I had. When I did the time, it wouldn't make it fit the time at all. I'd type in the time, hit go. It seemed to shorten them, but when I pieced all the things together, it was still like over an hour or something. I'm like, that's not 7 minutes.
Huh.
It was very weird. And then there's like a percent thing, and you mess with the percent and it would change the size, and that seemed to work better. So I would ask ChatGPT, like, if this then blah, what percent would I need to be putting in? And it would be like 94%. And I'm like, you just made the video longer. That's wrong. Chat, GBT.
What you actually want to do is slow your video down.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I was like, I was just sitting there having a conversation with an AI the whole time, just like, no, help me. I don't want to do math. Help me. But
Fuck.
yeah. So anyway, this has been a very good learning experience.
Yeah, it really has. It really has. And like just the boundaries and like the different programs, and like I got to play with synthesizers and plugins that I didn't even know existed within my shit. And like just looking at the knobs and being like, A is for attack. Attack delays, like it's like a fade into the note. So like if you have a strong like percussion, like a strong sound and you kind of want it to like peter in, like think of like violins like crescendoing in, but like each note has that effect. You can do that with the attack. I'm like, oh, that's what the A knob is. Like, oh, and the D is decay, it just does the same thing but on the back end.
right.
And like S is sustain. It does what you think it does. It just holds the note longer. Like, oh, that's I just like actually looked at the and like thought critically about it because I had an objective. Like I was like, okay, I wanted
you
to
needed your
sound this
tools
way.
to do what you needed to do. If you didn't have the tools, you couldn't do what you needed to do. I ran into the same thing with like, I so like every time I'd see artists make digital art, I would always watch them use the mask tool a lot. Everybody uses the mask tool because it's very handy for very specific things, and just in general for other things actually. But I always avoided it because I didn't know how the hell to use it, and I would always like find like different ways to do a thing and avoid using the mask tool. But it's extremely handy and should be used. And so because I had this project and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to be doing this stuff. I plan on doing this stuff. So let's learn how to use the thing. And I did, and I used it all over the place. It was really awesome. And then like smart objects, never knew what that was. Now I do, and it's great. I hated them.
Yeah.
I would always just convert them to layer, but actually they're pretty nice to have. The like saturation, hue, colorizing, all that stuff never touched. I would just try to like make the colors look right with brushes and whatnot. Turns out, yeah, no, you should definitely use those different things because they can make a picture look completely different and better. Like if you want your picture to be warm, yes, you could use warm colors, but just because you're using warm colors doesn't mean your blue that you used is warm. There's ways to make blue look warm, even though that sounds ass backwards. But if you use colorizing and like different tools, you can kind of like change the whole entire feeling of an image. And it's just like I wouldn't have known that had I not had to learn that, and I'm glad I did. And I can't wait to see what kind of stuff I end up learning next. I'm still going to be yelling at my computer and throwing a fit half the time. but
Well,
later I'll be glad I did.
Those emotions just mean that you care. And that just means that the quality of the product will only be better. It's when you stop yelling and when you stop getting frustrated is when you no longer care. That's the problem.
That's deep. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I wanna touch a little bit on the motivation, but I want to start with you. I know in my video I said Metallica was a little bit of my inspiration, and I want to go a little bit deeper about that. But your stuff is a little more abstract and like a little less tangible than mine was. So I wanna hear you talk about who like your favorite artists are and like some of your favorite styles and what you've adopted from other people and like other masters, other people you admire.
Well, I did take a lot of art classes, and I wish I took more because in school I I don't know who was making the schedules, but I ended up taking less art classes than most students in my class somehow. Um,
Because you're just that good. You didn't know.
no, I don't know.
Test it out.
They're just really bad at making the schedule, and I just ended up missing like whole years and shit, and it was sucked. But that didn't stop me from drawing. I mean, that was kind of for me where it all started was, like as a kid in school, eventually there was downtime, and it's either talk to people, and I wasn't one to talk to people, and then it was like read, but I had ADD, so reading literally made me angry because all the words were jumping everywhere. so so I ended up just like turning my homework backwards and drawing on the back, just doodling and doodling and doodling and doodling. And you know, eventually I started to get compliments from teachers, even though I wasn't supposed to be doing that. They'd be like, "Oh, you actually have depth in this." And I'm like, "Depth? What's depth?" So just like those little like sprinkles of like pats on the back, or like someone telling me that I actually am understanding something, kind of started to lead me down a line of like continuing to practice drawing stuff. And again, would do a lot of it in class, but I ended up doing a lot at home as well. I realized that since I did draw with a number 2 pencil on a paper, I ended up being very good with colored pencil because I understood how that media worked. From there, I can't name artists because I'm terrible with names, and honestly, I know there are some, but I just can't think of the names right now. But pieces that had like photorealism blew my mind. When I looked at a picture, somebody holding an orb that was metallic, and it was like it's a pretty famous drawing, I think. I forget, but it's like
yeah, I know the one you're talking about. It's like a sphere, and he's holding it, and then it's a self-portrait through the sphere, but everything's distorted as though like perfectly to the concave of the sphere outside of the reflection.
Yeah. So when I saw something like that, I was like, "Oh my God, there is a whole different level." I mean, obviously, I knew there was art pieces out there. I knew like Mona Lisa and you know the regular stuff, but seeing something like that to like get to a level to where you can make it look like you took a picture was just, that is what inspired me to keep going, to get to that point. And there are some things that I would say I've made some pretty good photorealism, and that was cool. But then fast forward to college, where I'm actually taking like art history, so I got to learn about abstract images and what's the word? Not improv. Goodness, it's when something looks like something. Goodness. Impressionist. Jesus, thank you. I'm the one who took the art classes. Yeah. Not the English.
I went to a fake art school.
Not the English classes, though. Yeah, no, but anyway, like, see, learning about Impressionism and then, like, getting to a point where I could do photorealism really just kind of, like, flipped everything I knew on its head. And I ran into a teacher that was all about photorealism and realized what a pretentious jerk he was. And he only wanted things to be photorealistic or make sense. And we had a class where somebody had their art piece, like in a lot of college art classes, you'd have to have somebody's art piece up, and then everybody would critique it or say something about it or something. We'd have to talk about the piece somehow, and it'd go round robin like that. Someone had their art piece up, and it was like it wasn't a balloon, but it was a balloon, and it had a string, but it wasn't a string, and it was in this really fantastical environment. It was very bizarre, but really, really cool looking. And the teacher kept going down the line and going like, Bob, what would you say is wrong with this picture? And Bob would go, nothing. There's nothing wrong with this picture. She did everything in a style that I wish I had. I love this picture. And everybody had the same thing to say. Everybody said, no, we like it. I wouldn't want it to look realistic or any of that stuff. So I don't know. Going through that whole entire like thing, and then eventually like running into video games and understanding that like yeah, there's art with that and you can make something, and I like to make stuff, made me really want to start making stuff for video games. So now I had this whole drive to eventually I want to have a career in video games and make stuff. So that's kind of me. It's always been like a carrot on the stick in the future kind of thing for me, is just chasing like, ooh, I want to do that. Ooh, I want to do that. And so I try to get better at that. There's a lot of that for me.
Cool.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah.
You went through it a little, but
yeah, a little bit. I purposefully left it vague so we'd have something to talk about after the video since it was short. But like I said, my inspiration for it was Metallica, specifically the interlude in the song Master of Puppets. It's a clean guitar acoustic. It's just a bunch of chords, and it was like the first like fancy thing I learned how to play on the guitar, and I learned how to finger pick it, which like built a lot of finger dexterity and actually helped me play bass. And I think that's why I like the bass so much, is because like it was like the first major breakthrough I had on the guitar was playing that finger style of Master of Puppets. So, but I love that like melodic like arpeggio style. I don't like playing chords. I just find them tedious. I like the melodies, so that's why I like to play the bass more. But anyway, and also my favorite musician of all time was a part of Metallica. His name was Cliff Burton, but he died um, in the middle of recording. I think it was their fourth album. And by that point, was "And Justice for All." They were on tour. There was a tragic bus accident. He got ejectocetoed, and the bus rolled over on him, and he tragically passed away.
Yeah.
And ever since then, like, I love Metallica. They're like a top 10 band for me. At one point, my favorite band of all time, as I was just discovering music. But every album after "And Justice for All," I will say, falls off. And then the last couple are garbage. I will say it, and I will say that because I'm a fan, and they're not above my criticism as a fan.
Yeah.
But I loved this part because it was the first time that I kind of like experienced a story through a song. The song itself, Master of Puppets, is about addiction, and that interlude part like comes after like one of the choruses where the guy's like begging for his fix and he gets it, and then it cuts to that and I'm like, holy shit, like this is him shooting up. And then the song slowly gets more haunting, and then it cuts to this really beautiful, it's like a distorted guitar, but it's all arpeggios, like really high on the neck. And I remember when my guitar teacher was teaching this part, he was like, this is when he was talking about the scales. He's like, these aren't random notes, dude. This is like fucking Mozart shit. It's exactly what he said. And he explained like, this is the root, this is the third, this is the fifth. That makes the chord. When you play them independently, that's an arpeggio, and it makes this beautiful sound. And when you descend, the one above it is a diminished chord, and it sounds haunting because everything is minor, so everything is dissonant. There's no resolution to it, so it just sounds bleh.
So you just blew your mind at that time.
Yeah, and I'm like, holy fuck, like not only are there just like notes, but there's relationships in between the notes, and then like they all have numbers. And then just because like two notes are in one key and they have one relationship in that key, in another key they can exist in the same key, but in the grand scheme of things have a completely different relationship relative to the rest of the notes in that key. And I'm like, holy fuck. So it's like, it's all like patterns and like interchangeable dimensions. And that was when I like kind of like really started to unlock music. And I'm like, I finally get it. But I was never like good from a technical standpoint, like truly good. Like I could fake it, I could stumble around, and I could play bass like no one's fucking business. But I like was never like a shredder like I wanted to be. I wanted to fucking shred the neck of the guitar. And I knew how to do it in theory. I just could never get it under my fingers for whatever reason. Probably because I never really practiced as hard as I should have if I really wanted to do it.
Uh-huh.
But that like knowledge always stuck in my head. Like, oh, that's just a sweeping arpeggio. Like I know what notes he's hitting, and I know like he's got to do it double time at like high tempos. Like I know the architecture around it. I just don't have the contractors to build it. so so that's where the software comes in. I'm using FL Studio, which is Fruity Loops is what it used to be called. And
Mm.
when I was looking into this shit, it's like it's like a Photoshop for musicians and like music producers. And what I like about the particular program that I use is that it's a one-time purchase and it's lifetime upgrades. And I got the producer's edition, so I have access to all the native plugins. So I spent a little bit of money. But I also get like every time they update, I don't have to spend that money again to get the latest update. So I'm very happy with that decision. I know it's not like everyone's favorite, but other artists, I think like Dead Mouse use it. So if that's good enough for that dude who's like a platinum artist, I'll
Yeah.
fucking use it. So
No, I mean it's the same thing with me. Like I mean I could have just been using a lot of the free programs and they're all good. They're all very good. Like I for like 3D modeling, I use Blender. It is extremely good. It's a very good
uh-huh.
program.
Yeah.
So
Because open
but
source is amazing for that kind of shit
yeah.
because it's just a bunch of like-minded people who want to make the product better for everyone else because they like it too.
Yeah, but when you're
It's like the
trying
perfect model.
when you're trying to go for like a very specific thing and you know if I just hit this button and hit okay, I can have the thing that I need to do the thing I want to do because there's that like urge, that like need that you're like, I know what I want. So like
Yeah.
I've spent some money. Like Photoshop isn't free. Used to, I think. Like didn't wasn't there like a way to get it for free? I don't know, whatever. But like
We're not
yeah,
going to condone piracy. We pay for everything here.
I do pay for everything all the time. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of
Yeah.
pirates.
Piracy is bad. Leave that to the Somalians.
Speaking of piracy, you can't really see it. I think you might have seen it, but I got this cool new shirt. It's a cat. It's not a pirate, but he's a yakuza because he's got like a Japanese gang. Like he's got the tattoos on him and he's got a knife in his mouth. It's
Oh,
awesome.
that's cool.
Yeah, I just got this T-shirt and I'm like
I
I'm wearing.
can't see it, but I'll see it when you send me your video
Oh,
file.
oh, you'll see it.
Uh, uh,
It's my
I can't
favorite.
wait.
But I think unless did you had anything more you wanted to say on that? I didn't mean to like
Um,
derail.
uh,
Yeah,
no, I think that was about it.
yeah.
Let me talk about like some. Let me just pontificate a little bit more about my musical process, if you don't mind.
I don't care. I mean, like
So
literally. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, man.
so I so I started with the chord progression to that interlude. After that whole explanation as to why Metallica, why that song, like there's like a huge emotional attachment to it, and I forget the word, but there's a French word for a particular thing that happens sometimes when you listen to music. Brian, have you ever listened to a song and then just like heard like a drop or like a specific song or like a part of the song or a lyric or like a musical movement that just sends a shiver down your spine?
Yes, yes, I have.
There's a word for that. I forget what it is, but that's a universal thing. And
Coming.
music does that universally to people, and that's what I love about music. That's like my favorite thing about it is much like art is universal. Like anyone who can see can appreciate art, anyone who can hear can appreciate music.
Mm.
So that's kind of what I like about it is it's so universal, and then it's so ubiquitous as well. Like I can take a concept like Metallica and translate it to something electronic and use the same ideas, the same scales, the same fucking chord progression to make a completely different song, right?
Yeah,
And then go back to what my guitar teacher said. That shit's Mozart. They took something classical and made it fucking metal. So it's so ubiquitous. These ideas can be expressed in so many different ways that it's so amazing to me that
yeah,
that seven notes of that scale, that E Phrygian scale, just seven of those notes can be played in so many different ways and then in so many different voices. You have a piano in Mozart's case, and then electric guitars drums, bass, metal vocals in Metallica's case, and then my electric synthesizers, my digital synthesizers in
Yeah.
my case.
All
Like,
different, but all related.
yeah. So that's what I love about music is that there's so much room for ubiquity, there's so much room for inspiration, and there's so much room for individuality because everyone's voice is different, everyone's ear is different, everyone's preference is different. And that's what I really love about it. I think it's like it's my most true form of expression. It's the
Mm.
best way that I can most truly freely express myself comfortably.
Yeah, and you're damn good at it.
Thank you.
Yeah. No,
And
I got.
likewise to you.
Thank you. I tip my hat to you, sir.
I wish I was wearing a fedora.
Yeah, I know. Tip fedora.
Milady.
um. Yeah, I mean, I that is awesome to hear because it's always fun to hear like other people's stories of like how they kind of got like I think the one thing that always annoyed me was I guess annoyed me was when people would be like, man, I wish I was good at drawing. Man, I'm just bad at drawing. It's impossible for me. I'm like, dude, I wasn't good at drawing either. I know,
Yeah.
like, and it's all situational. It's not like they said that and I'm like, well, fuck you. It was more like the context that they were giving was like essentially that I was born being able to draw, and that's not at all. Like I worked very hard to be able to get to where I was. So like that's all it takes is a lot of practice. But you have to have the drive to want to do that. So it's it depends what you want. Like I guess it's a difference between like I wish I knew how to do music and then saying that or saying I don't know how to make music. Those are two different things. I wish I did.
Yeah.
And I know I can, but I wouldn't say that I don't know how to make music because it just takes time.
Yeah, I think like the idea of like God-given talent, like there's a little bit that exists, but I think it's all just muscle control and like memory, and it's like talent is just a skill. Like it's something that can be developed. Like some people are more adept and equipped just like for whatever reason to just be biologically born like more dexterous than other people, and as a result may learn how to do certain things on the guitar faster, but that doesn't mean their ceiling is any higher than anyone else's. It just means that their floor was a little bit higher than yours. It just means you have a few more rungs on the ladder to climb to get to where they are. And it doesn't mean that the place that you can end up isn't any higher or lower than they are. It just means that they got a little bit of a head start.
But
that's all it is. It's just a little bit of a head start.
I would also say that like like there's a lot of people that chase that dragon where they're just like, that person's so good and look at how their stuff looks. It looks like this. My skill isn't the same as theirs. And it's like, yeah, but you can make your own damn thing. Like you don't have to be like if there's people who aren't as dexterous or strong as like certain people or tall or whatever, like there's physical boundaries out there. But like, isn't there like a one-armed drummer out there? Like there's
Def Leppard.
Yeah, and it's got its own sound to it because of that. Like and nobody else has that sound, like kind of, you know what I mean? Like it your limitations might actually be a good thing in disguise. You might not like it, no one does, but like, for me, I struggle with doing you'll see down the road when we do like little things, but I struggle very much with doing very confident straight lines or curves. I do a lot of like I think what it's called is like searching lines. I forget what exactly it's called, but it's essentially like sketching. Like if you see sketches, they're very sketch looking. And that for a very long time that bothered me, and I struggled to get out of that habit. I know how to get out of that habit. I can do those, but instead what I ended up becoming and doing is just making that a strong suit of mine. And now like my sketch drawings can be very, very good. So instead of like trying to look like other people. I just instead got good at the thing that I kind of was already good at.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more thing, and then I think we should wrap it.
I think so too.
In in my book report, I talked about using my musical, like my ear, to kind of like make the melodies musically. I'm not going to talk about like the brute force of that, because that's literally what it was just a brute force process of saying, does this note work? Nope. Does this note work? Yup. And then just going from there. Eventually, like, I remembered and like developed an ear, like, to be like, okay, these relationships work and these intervals work, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I want to know, as an artist, do you have like, is your version of the ear your eye? Like, do you have like an eye for something where you can just look at it and be like, I know exactly what it needs? Or are you kind of more like me, where like you have a vision, but you kind of need to like brute force your way to it? Like, I guess yours would be like colors on the rainbow, or like on your palette until you find the right one.
I guess like kind of exactly what you were saying. Like it's both. Like when I'm new to a subject or medium, or I just haven't done it in a while, I will brute force it and I'll go like, does this work? No. Does this work? No. Does this work? Yes. But like once you get in like the groove of something, or just in general, I have like a few things that I know, like let's say I get to a point where an image, I have all the things I want. Like, for instance, my head. All right, I'll just talk about the picture. I have my head in the middle. I have the clouds on the bottom. I have this like line that goes around, and I have clouds over here. If I didn't have the clouds streaming down the sides of the screen, then all of the attention would be starting to focus towards the middle, because there's less interest on the sides of the screen. If I didn't have the neon light, or it could have been anything, but the neon light going around it, your eye again would be focused on the middle, my head, because one, it's a face, and humans tend to pay attention to faces very much so.
Oh, this is interesting.
So like, just in general, psychologically, you're going to look at the face immediately. But being that it's a face in the middle in a piece of art, you're going to look at it immediately. I needed to throw things that would make your eye go along the entire picture and look at different things and eventually fall back on the face. So I needed to keep that in mind the whole time. And I do that with most pieces, and sometimes you can throw that rule in the garbage. If a piece looks good, it looks good. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that what I just described was composition, and that is something you just get an eye for eventually, where like you can tell when an area is too crowded, or you can tell when if you like look at your piece, if you realize you keep looking at a like red flower in the bottom right of this picture, and you're like, I can't not look away from this red flower in the bottom right picture. There's so many other things. That might be an issue. Maybe you need to lighten the color up, or
Yeah.
So sorry, I like made that long-winded, but
No. I like that, because I kind of have like almost the exact same process, but translated into my language. Like, I'm listening to my bass line to be like, okay, I got to make sure that it's loud enough that it cuts through the mix, but not so loud that it drowns out the leads, which are going to be at a mid-range frequency. I got to make sure those are loud enough to overtake the bass, but not so loud that it drowns the bass, and not too loud that it blows your eardrums out. And
yeah.
then I got to think about like drones and like pedal notes underneath, and like ambient sounds, and then drum patterns, and like, so in a way, like my melody, like that lead, that those mid to high tones that you hear, like that carry the song, they're
Mhm.
like the face of my composition, right? So like, I'm
Right.
trying to like draw attention to that, and like create. In music, we use terms like tension and resolution,
Mhm.
because the way the notes interact, they either resolve to one another, meaning that they sound nice, or that they there's dissonance that they don't resolve together, that they sound like a little bit weird when played next to or on top of one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, and then you kind of want to play with like the push and pull of that. Like you don't want everything to be too happy and everything to resolve too well with one another, because then it becomes stale and boring.
Mm-hmm.
But if nothing resolves, then there's no direction your music takes and your ear is lost. There's nothing to kind of hook or root. There's no face. There's no eyes to your face. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like this is, we could go on, and I hope we do.
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, I can't wait to do the next one. We have a lot of ideas already in the loop, and I hope.
Do we want to pick one on the spot right now?
Whew, do we want to?
I think we should. We should.
Let's look. We have it in the chat.
Yeah.
Let's
Fuck,
see.
do it live. It's good ideas.
Do it fucking live. So this one is guess a movie based on poorly made creation. So I or you would pick a movie or show, and then I would draw it, and you would have to go like, that's this movie or that's this show, but I'd have to draw it shittily in some way. In some way, it's gonna be bad. And for you, or not bad, I guess vague. It's gonna be vague. And then for you, you'd have to go like, here's a movie or show, can you guess it? Here's the song or something. And I would have to figure out what the fuck movie or show it is.
Okay.
And we could probably do, I don't know, we'll talk about that, but that's the general idea. Yeah, let's have that be our next episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
I have some ideas. I have some.
I'll do the.
I actually have a couple ideas.
I did all right, good. I did the heart eye emoji on it. That way we know.
Me too. All right, so we're setting it in stone. We're making
let's go for that.
Creations based on movies, and then we're making each other guess.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. Cool.
All right. So that's, I guess.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited. I already want to start doing it. So I guess then that is it for this video. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.